So we have Stephanie and Daniel and Adrian. And it's the, how do you pronounce the last name?
Muniz.
Muniz family. And we have Danny over here, and we have pictures of Danny when he was
5 here.
5 here and
4 here.
4 here. So tell me about Danny before he got sick. What was he like as a child?
Danny as a child was he was a great child. He's fun. He was fun going. He was really talkative. He just enjoyed being a kid, you know.
Very outgoing.
Outgoing. He loves school. You could have a grown conversation with him. He would just talk about everything.
He was very mature for his age, and he got it in life what most adults don't even get.
He loved his family. Everything he talked about was, I love my family, and everything was about family. You know, always wanted to be around us. Always wanted to be around his grandmom and grandpop and everybody. And
when he turned 5 years old for his birthday, when he blew out his candle, his wish was that he wished his whole family would just stay together and be together. I've never seen a 5-year-old little boy not wish for a toy or a place to go or anything like that. He just wanted his family to be with him. And I mean, he got it. Like, there wasn't a dry eye in the room when he did that, when he wished for that. You know, he always amazes me, you know.
And how old is Danny today?
He's 8 years old.
So 8 years old. So 2 years ago, his life and your lives changed dramatically. So he was this vibrant kid. What happened? What happened 2 years ago?
So that Thursday we took him to the aquarium and we had a family day out. And then that Friday he wanted to go with my aunt and his cousin to have a guys' night because his cousin's a year younger than him. And so they went to the movies and they went out to the park and they played and they stayed up all night and ate a bunch of food and ice cream, and he came home Saturday. When he came home Saturday, he was tired and not his usually rambunctious self, but we chalked it up to him, you know, having a guy's night out and just overtired. He was still his normal self as far as talking to us and his personality. He's a comedian. He always made us laugh. And then Sunday came around and he was more tired than he was on Saturday, and then he complained of a headache. And I gave him some children's Motrin, and he said the headache didn't go away, which was odd to me. So I thought maybe he's just like overstressed and overtired. He did a lot this weekend. And he was sleeping a lot, and then he was losing his appetite. He didn't eat dinner.
Yeah, I see. He was sitting with us, and I just noticed he wasn't. He usually eats with us, you know, and he'll talk and eat with us and watch TV. And I seen that he was, you know, like couldn't stay up, like he was really tired. And I'm like, you know, so I asked him, Bob, what's going on? Are you tired? What's going on? You're not eating. And he said, no, yeah, I'm just a little tired. You know, and he just wouldn't eat his food, and he'd just fall asleep.
Yeah, I said, come here, and he just crawled right up and fell asleep.
So we just, you know, let him fall asleep. We just, like she said, we just thought he had a really big weekend. You know, he doesn't have weekends like that. You know, he would go out and play and stuff like that, but we wouldn't, you know, have so many weekends where he's busy. Busy,
yeah.
So when did you notice that something was beyond him?
Beyond out of control was Sunday night into the Monday morning is when we noticed he wasn't talking to us as much.
Monday morning, yeah.
And he always talks to Mom. If he doesn't talk to anybody else, he always talks to Mom. He would even, in the morning time, when he'd get up in the morning, remember? He brushed by everybody, and even if you said Dad or anybody said good morning to him, he didn't care. He'd go right to Mom, like, hi, Mommy, and, you know, say good morning, and then he'd go back and say, good morning, Dad, you know, and then he had to say hi to Mom first. So when he didn't respond to me, that's when a red flag went up. And I got Dad in there and we started talking to him, and Dad was asking him a bunch of questions. He wouldn't answer, and he's like, just answer Mom. You don't want to talk to Dad, answer Mom. I said, yeah, answer Mom. Are you okay? And just asking him questions, and he wouldn't respond to me. And then when he did respond, he would seem confused. Like he didn't know what he should say, or he was definitely confused.
It seemed like he would go in and out. Like
in and out.
He'd be there for a second, and he'd talk to us and be like, what's going on? And we talk to him, and then he'll have the gaze where he's like,
he'd stare off.
He'd just stare off, and you can see that he's not paying attention, or that he wasn't there. It wasn't Danny there, He was empty.
And he was whiny. He was like whining a little bit, and so I thought his belly hurt or something. And then we said, okay, well, that's not normal for him to act this way, not respond to us. Let's boom, right to the emergency room. So that's when Dad said, go in your room and get your shoes on, and he went in his room, and he was walking around his room completely lost. And then so we just grabbed him. Dad just grabbed him, and we just left, and we took him to South Jersey, and they did a CAT scan on him, and they did a couple other like blood work, lab work, everything, and they couldn't find out spinal tap. They couldn't find out what was wrong with him. So that's when they airlifted him to DuPont. And when we got to DuPont, the doctors came in and was kind of like talking to him and trying to find out, asking him questions, and some things he would remember and some things he wouldn't. And these were questions that he definitely knew the answers to.
What's Sissy's name? And he wouldn't remember what it was right then.
What's your dog's name?
What's your dog's name?
His teacher, he had a
favorite teacher.
He loved his teachers. He loved Miss Bodine, Miss Harrington, and Miss
I forget her name now, right?
Miss Gannon.
Gannon, yeah.
And those were his favorite teachers, and he always talked about his teachers. He loved his teachers. And then when we asked him what their names, he couldn't remember. And I knew that, okay, something is going on, because these are questions he knows. And they thought he just had regular encephalitis. They gave him an MRI that evening. By 6 o'clock at night, he completely stopped talking. And I kept telling him I love him. And the last thing he said to me was, I know you do, Mom. And then that was it. He didn't talk anymore after that. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So they gave him an MRI, and they found swelling and bleeding in his brain. And they assumed he just had the regular encephalitis. So they said that with that, if they treat it, they'll treat with 5 days of high-dose steroids, and that he should recover, and that he would be fine. So we were completely hopeful that he was going to get better and everything was going to be okay. Even if he had a little bit of a deficit, we were going to be okay. And by the 4th and 5th day in the high-dose steroids, he took a turn for the worse. He started grinding his teeth, and he was making movements with his body that wasn't normal. So they knew something else was wrong. So they put him into the PICU because he was just in a regular hospital room. They moved him to the PICU, and he just kept going downhill. We were losing him, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong as far as why the steroids weren't stopping the attack in his brain. They gave him another MRI and seen it got worse, and he had more bleeding and bruising at the brain and the swelling, and they couldn't understand where it was coming from. So they tested him for every kind of virus, and everything came back negative. They tested him for mitochondrial disease, that came back negative. They sent him his genes out for gene testing. It was something with his genes. That came back, everything normal. The biggest challenge was to stop it. That was the biggest challenge. And they gave him IVIG, which is, they replaced his white blood cells. They gave him plasmapheresis, which is they hooked him up and took his blood and cleaned out his blood and took all the plasma out and put in donated plasma, cleaned it out and put it back in, thinking that might help him stop the attack, and they just could not turn his immune system off. And what they found out was that whatever they believe it was a virus, they don't know what virus. They said it could have been something as simple as a stomach virus, and he could have came and went and we never would have known it. But whatever it was disguised itself like his brain cells. And so when he came, he fought the virus off fine, but once the virus was gone, his immune system turned on himself and started attacking his brain cells. Yeah. The problem was we couldn't get his immune system to turn off.
To stop it.
It was like an active overdrive, and that switch was flipped and there was no turning it off. So that's why the doctors did all this. Then they ran out of options because there was nothing else. He had a breathing tube. He was, you know, completely almost like comatose, right? Yeah.
Sorry. It's okay.
There was a doctor in the PICU that just kept, you know, really striving to find out what was going on and how to stop it. And he came to us with a solution, and he said, I have this medication. It's called Remicade. It's for rheumatoid arthritis. It's out of the scope of what we treat this for. We had to make a decision because if they gave him this treatment, it was an IV treatment that he would get, and it was they told us and warned us that if we gave him this treatment, it could possibly kill him. So we had to make the decision of whether or not to go through with it, knowing the risk. But we decided that if we were going to lose him, we were going to lose him knowing we tried everything we could.
You know, we just feel like since there was nothing else that they could have done for him, and they're telling us, you know, they don't know what's going on, and you know, we've tried everything, and now this doctor who it was bothering him that he couldn't find a way to help him, so he was doing extra things, and he actually, for him to find something that that he says could possibly work, we felt like that was God saying, this is something else for him. We're gonna save him like
it's this. It's not over.
Yeah.
The fight's not over.
So we're like, you know, we can't turn this down. This is something that's got sent to him, you know, by a doctor who was going into overtime to work for Danny, you know, and so we're like, regardless if you know, if he happens to pass away from it, at least we know we tried everything that was possibly could be given to him, than not, you know, because if he didn't get it, he would probably passed away anyway.
He would have definitely passed away.
Because he really wasn't doing good. He was really taking a turn for the worst.
They couldn't stop the attack in his brain, and eventually it would have attacked the cells that controlled all his functions, and he would have passed away for sure. So we were faced with, he was going to pass away either way. So we had to make a decision, and it wasn't really a hard decision when you think about it, you know. And then, so we went with that, and they gave him his first dose, and they said if he was to have a reaction from it that was bad, he would get a rash, a fever, and things like that they had to watch out for. So he went and they started it, and don't you know, he started spiking a fever and everything. I was petrified, you know. And I remember I left his room and I went into the bathroom and I got on my hands and my knees and I prayed. I want to be selfish. I want to keep my son, you know. But I prayed. And when I came out of there and I went back into the room, his fever was gone. His fever was completely gone. And the nurse was like, oh, I think it might have been the Tylenol I gave him. And I know it wasn't. I know it wasn't Tylenol. I know it was the Lord. I know. He had to go through a month of that. He had to get 4 doses of the maximum dose for the Remicade. He got to the point where he was stable enough to move out of the PICU. So we felt it was working. We get him into the rehab unit. He was there for about a month and he started rehab. And he was making, he was still in a bad situation. He couldn't talk. He drooled constantly from his mouth. the tone in his body, because his brain couldn't regulate it, was very tight. His arms were pushed up. You couldn't stretch his arms out. You couldn't move him. But we saw in his eyes, we saw the gains. We saw that he was still there. So after a month, they gave him another MRI just to make sure that what they did worked. And when they came back to us, they said there was still bleeding in the brain, and the process has slowed down, but it did not stop. So there's something else. They have to do something else. So that's when they called in a diagnostic doctor, and she's the one, her and the other doctor they saved his life. She said, what is it about him that makes him so different? And he's one of, at the time, I'm not sure the statistics now, but at that time, 2 years ago, he was only the 6th person in the United States to have his condition, which they diagnosed him with acute hemorrhagic necrotic leukoencephalitis. And all that means is it's a sudden attack of his brain, of the hemorrhagic, which is bleeding, and the leukoencephalitis, swelling of the brain. So she had to find a way to turn off his immune system. She couldn't understand why his immune system wouldn't turn off after everything they tried. So she came back to us with a medication called Kineret, and it's a daily injection. It's only a 24-hour shelf life. You have to give it to him every day. And she says he may have to be on it forever. It's an immunosuppressant. So it worked. We gave it to him, and we started giving it to him. He got another repeated MRI. It stopped. His brain started cleaning up all the blood and everything. But once his brain cleaned up all the blood, he was left with massive damage. Massive brain loss, massive tissue loss, cell loss. And so he'll never be the boy that he used to be. Never. No matter what. And all we can do is...
no, baby.
We take him to therapy all the time, and the good thing that we have on our side is not only God, but he was very young when it happened. So they feel that since he has so much more brain growth to go, that they're hopeful, and we all remain hopeful that maybe since his brain will grow, maybe it'll start picking up the pieces of what he lost, and maybe other functions of his brain will pick up what he lost over here. So that's what we're hoping for, but it's a long journey, you know.
He's come along. He's come a long way since
come
then,
a long
too.
way.
He's shown improvement.
And what does he do with therapy? What's therapy?
Well, so therapy, he goes to speech therapy, OT therapy, and PT therapy. And PT works with his legs and getting him to stretch his legs and try to move his legs. And then OT tries to get him to move his arms. And speech tries to come up with a consistent form of communication for him. So when we first came out of this, he was still in a bad place. And then that year, over the next year, is when we started noticing better things. And then, but you don't realize all the secondary things that come flying at you once this happens. You're only thinking brain injury. You're not.
It's like your body. So many things happen to your body when you're not moving, and you can't get up, and you can't move everything around, and a lot of different things that you don't never think about.
Yeah, you take for granted. You take for granted. And, so now he suffers from chronic seizures every day. He's on 3 seizure medications and still continues to have seizures. He's maxed out on his seizure medication and still continues to have seizures. They've gotten better. They've gotten to a controllable point at this point, but he still suffers from them. And he has secondary chronic restrictive lung disease, and basically that's because he doesn't move around and jump and talk and cough, and so every day we make an ounce of mucus in our lungs that we move out naturally. You don't even know we're doing it. And because he's not moving, he can't move out that mucus. So the next day he's going to make another ounce, and then it just continues to build up in his lungs. So every day we have to give him respiratory treatments, which is, it's a 45-minute process to give him respiratory treatments. We give him a vest treatment that shakes up. We give him, after that's done, we give him the nebulizer to open up his lungs. Then we do a cough assist machine that it's like a vacuum. It kind of like forces air down his lungs and then sucks it out. And then after that, we're able to suction him out. He has to be continuously monitored on pulse ox to always monitor his oxygen, because again, he can't tell us.
Yeah.
So he can't tell us anything. So we have to always make sure he's able to breathe, and that the mucus doesn't get in his way, or if he coughs, we always clear it out for him. He has to have constant supervision, and that's why I'm unable to work. So he's come a very long way. Before he was so tight. Now the medication that he's on helps to loosen him up, plus the therapy. He has a stander now where we stand him up, and he weight bears on his hips. He also, because he can't eat, he went through G-tube surgery, so he eats being fed through a G-tube. And he also had to have hip surgery because his tone was so tight, because his brain can't regulate the tone in his body to make it loose enough. His hips pulled out of the socket. So on the one side really bad. So he had to get hip reconstructive surgery on the one side, and they basically cut both of his femurs and angled them in and put plates in. And they also cut his tendons on the bottom of his feet, because the tone, you couldn't push his foot up to a normal position. It was just down, like almost kind of like a foot drop.
Yeah.
And so they cut those, and then he heals from that. So they're able to loosen that up, and then every day he has to wear braces so that doesn't happen to him. And it only happened because he had a huge growth spurt.
Yeah.
And they said it would happen because he had a huge growth spurt. So all these other things continue to happen that you never think of that continue happening to him. Then last year we took him out because we still want him to experience life as a little boy, as an 8-year-old little boy. So we want to do normal 8-year-old little boy things with him. So, well, at the time he was 7, but we took him to trick-or-treat. We took him to the mall, and then after we took him there, he got the rhinovirus, which is a regular cold for you and I. But because he's on immunosuppressant, a cold for him is devastating. So it took him out, and then he ended up catching pneumonia, and then the pneumonia made him got septic. He had a bacterial pneumonia. It made his whole body septic. We were home one day and he stopped breathing.
I wasn't here, I was at work, and this happened.
I'll just the image, I'll never forget the image. The scariest thing in my life. We called 911, they came, they got him, and they took him to DuPont, and that's when they found out he had the pneumonia, and they think what happened, that he had a plug, and that we couldn't get it out, and his lips turned over his face, and everything turned completely blue. And we had a nurse, an evening nurse that was with me that night, thank God, and she was able to like smack it, while I was on the phone with 911, get it out of him, and then he turned pink again. So we put him to the emergency room, and that's when they found he had a bacterial pneumonia. And then he got a secondary infection from the breathing tube that they put in to him. So we almost lost him again because he was septic, and he couldn't hold his blood pressure, and they took out the board and everything. Like we were on the verge of a second time losing our son. And you never think, you think as a parent, you think, well, if he survived the brain injury, you don't think about all these other things that could come in and take your child out, and you don't realize it, and you take for granted your own immune system, and because his is compromised, now we're like on eggshells with everything we do, and where we take him and make sure he's safe and things like that. But he was in the hospital for 3.5 months, almost just as long as he was when he got his brain injury. And we finally got him home this year, in the beginning of the year, in March, and he's been healthy ever since. And we said we can get past August, because that's when it happened, was in August. We can get past August.
He had his first illness with his brain in August, and then
a year later
he had to go back on the same day for
respiratory distress. He went in for the same day. And we're like, if we can get past August, we're okay. And we did. We got past August. So, and he's doing phenomenal.
He's doing really good right now.
He's making great strides in therapy. We have arm slings for him that when he's in his wheelchair, you put his arms in there. He can knock over a block now when you tell him. He is communicating with us through eye blinks. So 1 blink for yes, and then he does 2 blinks for no. It's not always consistent, but that's okay. I'll take it. My son's communicating with me.
It's getting pretty consistent though.
It's getting better,
yeah. He's got his days where whenever he's tired or he just doesn't feel like it.
You have to take the day into account.
Yeah, you have to, like she said, take the day into account how he's feeling. Some days he's really, really good. His eyes are really awake and he answers you really, really fast. And there's other days where his eyes are lower, he's not feeling too good or whatever, and it takes a little longer for him to answer you. Yeah. But he's doing really good with it.
He's doing amazing. Yeah, he's doing amazing now.
So, his little brother here, Adrian, you were telling me before we started videoing that you had just gotten pregnant when all this happened. So tell a little bit about how Danny felt about having his little brother.
So when before we even knew he got sick, we found Danny always wanted a baby brother, and we said, well, whenever God gives us one is when we'll have one. And then we were blessed and we found out we were pregnant, and he was ecstatic. And he just could not wait. And he said, I'm going to teach him everything I know, and I want to share my room. And he's like, every day he'd wake up and come say, how's my mommy and the new baby growing in her belly? Every day he did that. Didn't miss a day. And he couldn't wait for our belly to get big, and he couldn't wait to feel the baby. He wanted to know what the baby looked like even then and there, even though it was just a little peanut. He wanted to know. He wanted to see. I had to pull up pictures and show him the stages. He was 1000% involved. And he would go to his grandparents on the weekend, and that's all he talked about. He would say, I would love it if it's a sister. He said, I will love it. It's okay. He said, I will love it if it's a sister, but I really want a baby brother. And then he got sick before we found out what the gender was. But we told him, and we said to him, hey, Danny, if it's a baby brother, what would you want to name him? And he goes, Daniel. And we said, we can't. That's your name. And he goes, that's okay, Mom. I don't mind sharing. And really, that's all I know.
Wow.
Yeah, so he wanted to share even his own name with him. So when we found out Adrian was a boy, we named Adrian's middle name Daniel after his brother, which was what he wanted. So Adrian's name is Adrian Daniel. So.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Adrian's full of energy there.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's doing really good with us here. So, tell us a little bit about, through this whole struggle, where you are financially, because that's where you're. You're fortunate you have health insurance, and the health insurance and the secondary insurance has been covering things.
Has been covering, yeah.
But I'm working full time, but I'm unable to work overtime. We were doing a lot of overtime just to keep up with the bills before Danny got sick, but now, I just feel like I have to be here to help out, and I have to be here with the family. I can't just be doing overtime. And it's just hard.
I can't work.
And she can't work. I can't have her just, she'd fall apart if she does everything herself, So.
Do you mind if I ask roughly how much do you make, through your job there?
A year?
A year.
Maybe like 32 a year.
30 to 32,000.
But unfortunately, because of Danny's illness,
now it's less. It's maybe, I'll probably get maybe about 30 this year.
Well, because of Danny's illness, that has left us. Obviously, we're at the hospital every single day, and
so
has
you're
left
taking
us
family medical leave.
Family medical leave, but unfortunately, even though Dan is approved for family medical leave, it's not paid.
Yeah, it's not paid.
So he's covered. His job is safe, but there's still no paycheck coming when he needs to take them days. And then it's not just the one in time. It'd be different, I think, maybe if Danny wasn't hospitalized, but it's been one hospitalization after another, after another, after another for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That only right now, this last half of the year, has been the best year for him right now.
Yeah.
These last 2 years has been definitely a struggle to get him to a good place, medically, healthy wise, and he's been hospitalized for the pneumonia, and every time we turn around where we were rushing him to the emergency room.
When he had his hip surgery, he was in there for a little bit because with the anesthesia, he took a long time to wake up from that. So, I mean,
and then it's like a downward, so he can't tolerate the anesthesia. So 3 hours of anesthesia for him is 3 days of trying to wake up from that anesthesia. And then because of that, there's no respiratory treatments. And because of that, now he suffers respiratory-wise. So then we had to go back. We went home for 2 days and had to go right back to the emergency room for the respiratory aspect of it.
So that gives you that prolonged time that you're out of work. You're out of work. You're not getting a paycheck. You rent your house here, and roughly what's your monthly rent?
So our monthly rent is $1,300 a month.
So $1,300 a month, and you know, through the past couple of years, how much are you behind on the rent?
So we are a lot behind. We can never make the full payment, if not a payment at all. So even when we are able to make a payment, it's not the full payment. It's, you know, anywhere, like I think our last payment was in May that we were able to pay, and then it was only $1,200. It wasn't even $1,300. And then before that, it was only $800. It wasn't $1,300. So it's been a struggle.
Just trying to keep up with rent and other bills.
So the rent, right? You're about, I think we're estimating right now about $27,000 behind. That needs to. That's kind of like the emergent need because you know, eviction issues that are coming.
Yes, we definitely got an eviction notice. But that being said, we are still grateful. Our landlord has been a blessing. He deserves his money. He's been completely understanding as far as what's happened to us, and I think that's why. And we've kept in contact with him and let him know, you know, what's been going on. But I mean, we still only rent, and he deserves his money. And regardless of whatever we go through, he still needs his money, and I don't blame him. We don't blame him one bit.
I mean, it's an embarrassing situation.
It is.
I mean, I really hate that we can't give this man his money when he's been so good.
He has been patient with us, and now we got an eviction notice, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I mean, he deserves his money, and it's just unfortunate due to our circumstances we aren't able to pay him, you know, consistently.
So, but you need to keep your home, and you need to keep.
We definitely need to keep our home. We absolutely have nowhere to go with a disabled child if we were to get evicted. We have no family we can stay with, no friends we can stay with. So, like I was saying before that, even though our home is too small for Daniel because of his medical need, that's why he's out here in the living room. He cannot fit in his own room. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to get him to in the wheelchair in and out of the bathroom and down the hallways. He used to always be in and out of everybody's room, and now it's a challenge to get him into the rooms because of the 90-degree turns. His medical equipment takes up the entire space in his room. All of his medical supplies, his stander, his Hoyer lift, everything that we need. The room is only 10 by 10, so it takes up all the room, and that makes Adrian unable to also use the bedroom. So it's unfortunate, but we still need a roof over our head, and that's the big thing. So even though our house is too small for him right now, it's still our home, you know, and we can't lose it. We can't.
So if you guys had 1 minute to say something to the people in this community, what you need.
Oh my gosh,
Thank
what we
everybody.
need. Oh my gosh, I just want to even just say thank you for the community.
They've done so much
What
for
the
us
community
already.
has done for us, for Daniel, when they pulled together for Daniel, has been amazing. And we were going through this alone
Yeah.
until the community, the teachers, and pulled together and came together, and we restored our faith in humanity, really, because we were going through this all by ourselves. And then the community came together, and there's always somebody knocking on our door, just saying hi, and prayers are always up in the air, and that's all we ever ask for, are prayers.
Yeah.
You know, really.
Anything else is just extra, you know, and they've given so much already, and
Mm-hmm.
it's unbelievable. The community out here has been great to us.
And I don't know, it's hard to ask people. It's really hard to ask people for help. You know, this has been hard. And we're not that type of people to just, you know, reach our hands out and ask. And that's been a challenge for us too. And I think that's why, another reason why we're kind of in this situation is that we don't go out and ask for help. And if it wasn't for Miss Barb, we would never be where we're at today. Big thank you to Miss Barb too and her family.